So what's really interesting and different, because there was a question from the audience about what's changed since the 1990s, why is this different than GDPR? Part of it is that the EU approach is very much aspirational. It's not like there were a bunch of specific harms which we're trying to address. We see a bunch of harms probably happening as a result of this thing, and we want to prevent those things from happening in the first place. That's a very different approach. Now, the problem with that approach is that it is by necessity very broad. Like, you've basically got this thing where you're saying, well, any of these things can happen. We don't know which ones will happen. So let's go send a whole bunch of feelers out in all these directions and try to fix them all at once. That makes it hard to comply with. The other problem, which they've been slowly addressing, has to do with, well, when you're that broad, how do you interpret the regulation? We actually had the same problem at GDPR, right? So I was at Google when all of that got implemented, and we were trying to figure out, how does this stuff even apply to us? You know, we've got these rules that were built to prevent specific harms created by other companies doing business that we don't do as an organization. And yet we still have to comply with them. So what does that even look like? So a huge amount of effort just went into, you know, working with engineers and lawyers and the EU regulators themselves to go figure out, what does this mean when you're not the target company? If you're, you know, if there was a rule in there, and there was one, to prevent Amazon from promoting their own products over the products that are being sold on their platform, what does that mean for a company that doesn't sell products on their platform? So, you know, these things were very interesting questions when we were doing GDPR. Just think about that times 100 for AI, where you're sitting there and saying, okay, we want something that doesn't limit individual autonomy. What the heck does that mean, right? And because one person takes an action, it might be harmful to another person's ability to take an action. So you can have an AI agent that does something for you. How do you protect both of their rights? So honestly, a lot of these things are kind of turning into philosophical discussions as much as anything else. But in the meantime, we're dealing with a regulatory framework that's built on top of it. So I feel like this is a really important thing, because if we get it wrong, we may make even bigger messes than we already have worldwide, especially as far as things like disinformation and authenticity. But I also feel like it's so nascent, we need to create a new way of creating regulation where it can be reactive and fast.